Since the new year, I have been working on a game centered around space. And no, it isn't Colony. What we have here are the basic mechanics for an orbital simulation game. And while it isn't ironed out, it's in a state where I feel confident enough to show it to the world. Now, it has been a while since I last uploaded, and we'll get into those reasons more towards the end of this video. It involves some controversy, some time spent on a frivolous project, and a new channel, so stay tuned. But for now, let's draw our attention back to my orbital simulator. This whole project started as me experimenting with sprite stacking. What is sprite stacking, you may ask? Well, I have a YouTube Shorts video on the very subject, but the basic rundown is you stack images on top of each other to give the illusion of 3D. I started off with a sprite stacked Earth and then made a black hole. I started out in GameMaker with some code that will draw the sprite layers in a stack along with some rotation. By scrolling the mouse wheel, you can also separate these layers even more. After some tinkering and finding a solution on Stack Overflow, I allowed my little Earth to orbit the black hole. Both objects have mass that plays a role in the calculation. I divide the mass by the distance between the two objects and store that in a variable called g-force. While this may not be an accurate name, it is basically the force of gravity. I then apply the force in a given direction, the g-dir, of the Earth to the black hole. There are some conditions I have added for this movement, but this is basically the rundown of how it all works. The black hole is the centerpiece to the simulator, so it does not move. I published this very early version as an HTML game on itch.io, so the link to that will be down in the description where you can check it out there. Gameplay started to take shape soon after. I allowed you to launch the Earth in the direction of the mouse cursor. This would cause Earth to orbit around the black hole and even get sucked in depending on the angle that you launched it at. I also display some very basic stats, such as the speed of the planet and how many orbits it has completed. If you wonder how I calculate orbits, I calculate the collision of a line that stretches from the starting point of the planet plus 32 pixels above it to the object it is orbiting. Now, with more objects and changes I made to determine which object to orbit, this code has some issues, so I do need to rework it. I then added some coins that can add to your score. If the score meets or exceeds the points needed, and your completed orbits do the same, then you win the game. This system isn't fully implemented yet, but it is next on the list. There's also a timer, and once this reaches 0 and you haven't cleared the level will just restart. You may wonder how this orbital sim determines which object to orbit. Looking at this demo, you may notice that the moon orbits the Earth, and then when launched, the Earth will either orbit the sun or the black hole. Before, what I was doing is just calculating the nearest object, but this built-in GameMaker function isn't realistic and can even include the object that is performing the surge. For example, at one point I removed the black hole from the level and the game just broke. The Earth just pretty much disappeared. This is because I had changed the order of objects in the room, and even when I put the black hole back, the Earth was now just counting itself as the nearest object. I found an old function popular with many GameMaker users in the past and, well, I guess still in the present. Using this, I could then build off of what was there and add mass into the equation. Now, when an object determines what it should orbit, it will always go for an object bigger than itself. This isn't entirely realistic though. We know that the moon itself has a gravitational pull on the Earth, that's why we have tides. But in terms of Earth orbiting the sun, we could say that the moon doesn't make too much of a difference in the orbital path. We aren't aiming for realism or precise calculations here, so objects with smaller mass are just ignored entirely. Another example of some inaccuracies is the gravitational constant, or big G. In real life, this value is 6.67430 times 10 to the negative 11th newtons times square meters divided by square kilograms. Now, if it isn't abundantly clear, nothing in my game is to scale, so when I attempted some calculations using this number, well, things broke. You could say there actually was some accuracy in my simulation, but on a scale of pixels, it was a futile task to attempt to use this in the calculation. It has been around 4 years since I took high school physics, so I simply have to ask all scientists, professors, and instructors to please forgive me for these grave sins. Now, I plan to add some more features for release. For one, I think it would be cool to have a map editor for the game. This would allow for players to create custom maps that could just be a variety of things. I also plan on releasing this as an HTML game alongside being a desktop app. I'm not entirely sure how GameMaker handles saving and loading files in an HTML build, but if I have to, I could limit the map editor to just the desktop if need be. Now, it is pretty early, but I also don't plan on really charging for this game. On itch.io, you can set a game to be $0 or a donation, and I feel that is a reasonable marketing strategy. I am also curious to see if I could get this on Steam, however, that isn't entirely on my radar right now. So that's one thing I have been working on for the new year, but now that we're towards the end of the video, I want to let you know what I have been doing for the past few months. Some of you might know that I made a video covering some drama with a certain game engine. That video itself did well in the YouTube algorithm, but it also stirred up some drama around that very video. I tried my best to be very informative, and maybe I could have done better, but I would like to apologize on my part. And the video has since been taken down by myself. I also mentioned that I was working on another game. This was more of a political satire game I was calling Put the Fries in the Bag, Mr. President. This was inspired by the popular meme quote, put the fries in the bag.
Put the fries in the bag, mate. Put the fries in the bag and skibbity toilet's rubbish. What?
And the fact that Donald Trump one time took a Sunday to work a shift at McDonald's, I just thought it was funny.
Donald Trump just literally put the fries in the bag.
Now, I ultimately wanted to avoid controversy with the US elections because this year was kind of sensitive for some people, and the game was also just very bland and gameplay wise, but it was a fun little project to work on for about a week or two. Lastly, I also started a new YouTube channel. While here on MicahTheManiac, I focus mainly on making games, on this new channel I want to focus on technology. That is why I have called this new channel Micah's Tech Hub. I already have a few videos there, so feel free to check it out. I would also like to mention I have a channel called NeoPolywog. This channel is more anime and slop content, so that one's also going to be down in the description if you want to check that out. But with all that being said, I hope you have enjoyed this certified MicahTheManiac classic. Anyways, I'm done making you guys cringe, so I'm going to hop off of here. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or even consider subscribing to the channel. This has been MicahTheManiac, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you very much.